Good evening and welcome to the wrap-up show for the Weasel Moot 2020. This was the 14th Weasel Moot, which is the tournament run by the Chicago Diplomacy Club, the Windy City Weasels. I am Brandon Fogel, and I am going to be your host tonight. Joining me are Siobhan Nolen, longtime DBN contributor, and tournament director Christian Kline. Siobhan and Christian, welcome. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great, thanks.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me.
All right. I see that your names are not showing, so we're going to fix that right here. All right. And Siobhan, you are joining us from the Bay Area, correct?
Yep, from San Jose, California.
And how are you breathing out there?
A lot better today. We've dropped down into the low 100s for AQI, so I can see some blue sky, I can breathe, I'm not coughing up a lung, and I will count myself lucky.
Glad to hear that and hope that continues. And Christian, you are joining us from Chicago, where I am as well, correct?
That's right, north side.
And how's the air quality here?
It's pretty good. I don't even know what AQI means. That's how good it is.
Well, rather than get a lesson in air quality index, let us talk about Weasel Moot. Christian, this was your first time TDing a tournament, correct?
That's correct. I volunteered, as you might recall, back before COVID-19, and we all thought that this would be an uneventful year for me to do my first TDing duties. And then COVID-19 hit, and it became a technological issue, and I am the absolute least qualified person for that. So that was interesting.
So how did it go for you overall then, despite the technological?
It went great because of you, Brandon Fogel, Brian Pravel, and Corey Neslin, and Dave Valetsky. So it went great because people who knew technology were on the tournament committee.
Well, the tournament went smoothly from the broadcaster's perspective, and also my somewhat limited perspective as an organizer. Once the tournament started, I didn't have as much to do. That really was up to you. And congratulations, by the way, on successfully running your first tournament. I thought you did an excellent job making some difficult decisions at times. There were some GM issues and some other stuff. So well done handling all of that.
Thank you.
So there were 14 boards. There were 2 rounds of 7 each that took place on different Saturdays. And the top 7 after that played in a top board on the following Sunday. This was Labor Day weekend. Let us have a look at how things shook out in terms of the top 7. And we'll do that right now. So the tournament winner was John Anderson, who finished with a lower score than Peter McNamara from the qualifying rounds. John placed second and ended up winning the top board in a really interesting way. He sort of took the early lead and as Germany and never relinquished it, which surprised all of us who were calling the board. Siobhan and Doug Moore and I were the principal analysts. And then we also had Brian Pravel and Chris Brand, who were doing some sideline reporting, which was really awesome. They were recording reports and giving us, we would play them later. They were recording them in real time. We would play them when we got to that phase in the broadcast. And all of this, by the way, if you're watching at home, can be viewed on the DBN YouTube channel, all 5 hours of our coverage of the top board, as well as all of the coverage of the first 2 rounds as well. So Peter McNamara, who had finished first after the qualifying rounds, ended up dropping to second. And then we had Hunter Ketcher finishing third. And then the rest of the top board was rounded out by Zach Moore, Jake Trotta, George Zhang. Ali actually didn't play on the top board. He was unable to. He had a camping trip that got in the way of that. But he still made the top 7 thanks to a very good score in the first round. And then the Liam Stokes rounded out the top board. He had finished 8th. So Christian, any comments about the first 2 rounds, how they went? We tried out this new scoring system that we developed.
I thought it went well. You and I, in talking about this, noticed that we had sort of lower scores than we expected out of round 1. 6 of our 7 best country awards came in round 2. And it's your opinion, and I agree with it, that people were playing the new scoring system. Tribute is not completely familiar to everyone just yet. And even to those it was familiar to, I think they were looking to just put themselves in contention in round 1 without a target on their back and then pull the trigger in round 2. That's the sense I got.
Yeah, there was a big surprise in round 1. There were 5 of the 7 boards had shared board tops. And Tribute is a system that rewards lone board tops a lot. And so there was definitely more conservative play in the first round, which took us by surprise. But after we talked to some players and thought about it, we realized that the top board had really changed the way that it had a strong effect on how people were approaching that round. They were content to take relatively small scores in the 20s and to try to set themselves up for launching into the top board in the second round, and also didn't want to become a target. There were definitely people who had that feeling. Now, Ali didn't have to be a target in the second round because he was gone, but the person who was in second going into the second round was Russ Dennis, who's the purveyor of the diplomacy briefing, and he did get targeted, actually. So, I think that there could have been more going for it in round one, more people going for it in round one, but it's hard to argue with the results, right? A lot of these guys made the top board, including there was a 4-way draw in round one. And three of the four in that ended up making the top board. And we'll hear John Anderson talk about that. We have an interview with John Anderson. We recorded an interview after right after he won the title on that Sunday night, and we're gonna play that for you here rather than record a new interview with him because I think that interview was pretty good. So. So Siobhan, you got to observe a lot of this. You called a bunch of the games on the second Saturday. You watched some of the games on the first Saturday, and then you called the top board. What was your take on the tournament overall?
I mean, I think I'm just going to piggyback the shock about the round one results and how many shared board tops there were. I mean, I haven't played this virtual diplomacy yet. I need to, but I was shocked with how few people went for it because I was watching that stream, even though I wasn't commenting on it. And I felt like there were many opportunities for people to take the solo board top for themselves. And it seemed shocking to me that there was such conservative play.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, it ended up sort of playing like a hyped up version of draw size scoring where, not only do you have to make it into the draw, but you have to make it into the board top. Yep. It's interesting, right? I mean, some people thought that I might be unhappy with it because of just because I, was one of the principal architects of Tribute, and it's wanted it to be a system where people were okay breaking alliances, where they had good sort of incentive not to take an alliance all the way to the end and play second fiddle.
Sorry to jump in here. And
sure.
The thing is that scoring systems might be built to encourage certain types of play, but there's no wrong way to play a scoring system. And like you said earlier, you can't argue with the results. I mean, 3 of the 4 players from that 4-way board top made it to the top board, which shocked me. But yeah. I mean, if you get to the top board, who can argue with you?
I think the existence of a standalone top board creates a countervailing incentive to the incentives created by Tribute. And as you said a few minutes ago, Brandon, I think the top board considerations carried the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting counterfactual to think how this might have gone under a different system like draw size or Dixie or Carnage. And there's a good argument that it might not have gone that differently, at least in the first round. I will say this, though. I do wonder if it's a winning strategy in the long run, where with Tribute, if we played a bunch of these tournaments with top boards, if people would actually play less conservatively. I don't know. It's a conjecture. All right, shall we move on and see how the best countries shook out? In Austria, we had Calvin Coulbury with a score of 50, part of a 17-17 split board top in round 2. That caused a lot of consternation, not just on the broadcast, but in the comment section as well. We'll skip down and note that Zach Moore in Italy was the other half of that 17-17 board top and also took a best country, and he made the top board. And Calvin did not, although he came very close. In England, John Anderson with a 59.2. Interesting note here is that this is the second consecutive tournament that John Anderson has won Best England. When I was updating this from the Liberty standings, I did not have to change the name in England. And this is, as a side note, the first 2 Best Englands were won by the same person, the ones of the year, the virtual tournaments in Dixie and Boston Massacre, and those were won by Russ Dennis, who had the Best England after round 1 and relinquished it to John Anderson. In France, we had Ali Adib with his first round score. In Germany, we have Riaz Varani taking Best Germany with a score of 46. Russia was Peter McNamara with the lone solo of the tournament. And in Turkey was Liam Stokes with a miniature 36.4. So the weakest of the best country awards, but enough to get him on the top board, just barely. So as Christian noted, 6 of these 7 were won in round 2, which is an indication that there was more aggressive play and more going for it in round 2.
Interestingly, sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
Turkey was the worst scorer according to our stats in the tournament. Russia and England were the best. I don't know that Russia and England being best is all that unusual. I think Turkey being the worst is pretty unusual.
I think Russia and England being the best is also unusual. France and Germany have typically been the stronger ones in these tournaments. But we'll have in the little preview for the October deadline. David Hood is going to do a little review of some of the stats from all of the face-to-face tournaments so far this year. So I have to say it was nice to see France not be the best performing country.
Yes, great.
Get a little tired of that. Cool. You guys have any thoughts about any of the best country awards?
I don't have any thoughts right up, but I do remember watching the first weekend's broadcast and seeing a lot of the larger scores coming out of the West. So I was happy to see some really strong play come out of the East in round 2.
Yeah, that was a feature. The France and Germany were the strongest 2 powers coming out of round 1, and they definitely were not coming out of round 2. All right, let's. And a little bit of advertisement here for later in the show. We have an interview. Our new player interview this week is with Calvin Coulbury. And Siobhan sat down with him for a nice little get to know you session. And the 1717 split board top does come up. All right, on to the specialty awards. In the Player's Choice category, we have Jason Massbaum. And Christian, do you have any comments about how these awards were won? Start with
you. I don't know Jason that well, but when I was like collecting votes before we announced, and the reaction I kept getting was, "You're kidding, right?" And not only was I not kidding, but like 3 different players in that game, he got just hammered. I think it was in Turkey in his round 1 game, and the guys who cut his throat all were really impressed by how he dealt with that and was personable. And so whatever people thought of you previously, Jason, these guys were impressed, and you received the most nominations out of that 1 game. And I should mention that the other 2 guys who got nominated were John Jameson and JJ Raymond.
Siobhan, how painful is it for Jason Massbaum to win the Player's Choice Award?
I give Jason a lot of grief. Jason and I have been playing this game together for many, many years. He's also out of California, and we know each other very well over a board. And so there's a little bit of tension just based on past board experiences. But in all reality, all of you who've seen my streams and watched me give him all the grief I do, Jason's a great guy. He's a very good player, a lot of sportsmanship. It actually doesn't shock me that he got the Player's Choice Award.
All right. The GM's Choice Award was given to Christian Brown. And this was on the... do you have any intel on this, Christian?
Yeah. Miletsky, we actually weren't necessarily going to do a GM's Choice, but Dave Miletsky, who volunteered to help run the tournament from a different hobby, Dave was GMing some games. He GM'd this game, and he just felt really strongly that Christian Brown deserved credit for... I think it was a struggle position rather than a dominant position.
And the Golden Blade went to Peter McNamara. This was not a struggle position.
No, we kept looking for, using as a heuristic, like, well, how about like a 3-dot stab that changed the dynamic of the game? Because we didn't want to have, give everything to the guy who soloed. But I mean, when you looked at the game, Peter stabbed everyone he could get his hands on. He only didn't stab 1 player, and that's because the game didn't allow him, never long enough for Russia to stab France, but he literally stabbed everyone else in sequence, sometimes 2 at once, over the course of 5 game years.
Yeah. Good. And the Icarus Award went to Owen Bragdon. How did he win that one?
Strong, not right out of the gate, but a strong mid-game. Let's see. Italy. He was Italy in round 1, got up to 9 dots in 06, according to my notes. Yeah, I looked at this game, and boy, it just, I guess the other players didn't give him time to get those newly built units into position, And by 09, he's at 0. So the 6 turns between 06 and 09, because he surged up to 9, and they punished him for that pretty harsh.
Well, that'll get you the Chris Award from 9 to 0 in 3 years. That'll do it. All right, the Lazarus Award went to George Zhang. How did he win that one?
Yeah, George Zhang. Dave Miletsky felt strongly about this one. Took a look at the game, and for sure, it was round 2. He was he was Austria, and he didn't build in 01. It just looked really bad for young George. And by 1910, it was a shared board top at 12. And I mean, there was some going back and forth and ups and downs, but Jesus, if you don't build it all as Austria in 1901, if you're not dead by 1910, I'm impressed. A shared board top, yeah, that deserves Lazarus.
Yeah. Welcome back from the dead, George Zhang. And last, there was a specialty award that came out of nowhere. Tell us about the haunted board.
Well, number 6. I guess I heard that there's a tradition of tournament directors inventing their own stupid awards, and I just noticed that on 2 of the 4 games that I GM'd, these guys, one in Singapore, one in British Columbia, had fire alarms like during the game, and had to I got a quick note, GM, please come back. One of the players has a fire alarm. His apartment might be on fire. I'm like, okay, I guess we'll pause the game. And it happened on the same damn board. It happened on what is it? I guess it was board 6. So yeah, we called it the haunted game, or the liar pants on fire board.
Wait, was it the same game, or was it the same board number on separate weekends?
No, the same board number on separate weekends. So round 1 and round 2, board 6. So if you're ever in a Weasels game in future and you're on board 6, make sure that battery in your fire alarm is working.
Yeah, well, we just need one more 6 to make it 3, and then we cinch the number.
Right.
All right, that is all of the specialty awards. Let us take. You guys want to hang out for a second while we play the interviews, and then we'll get a chance to say goodbye.
Sure,
let's do it.
All right, coming to you now is the post-game interview from Sunday night of the championship, the Weasel Moot Championship. The interview with the tournament champion, John Anderson. John, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a surprising result, especially for me.
Tell us.
Yeah,
all right. So first of all, you can leave the modesty on the nightstand over there. You want us to believe this was surprising, because this looked like you were firmly in control from pretty much the get-go.
Well, I came into this game not really knowing really most of the players. Well, boy, coming in, I really only knew Liam and Zach, and that's because we had a game together on the first round board, and that ended in a 4-way draw instigated by David Miller. He kind of came up with this idea of kind of sticking it to tribute, and he wanted to do this big 4-way draw. And he was trying to convince the rest of us, hey, if we have 20 points, we'll make it to the top board, just fine.
I do love that that worked out for everyone but David Miller.
It's kind of sweet justice in a way, I guess, in that way. But I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it. I was doing a lot of pushback. I thought this was crazy that we were having a 4-way board top. But when you get 3 people in a room together and they make a decision, it's kind of hard when it's just you on the outside to influence that. So I really just came into it knowing those 2, and boy, I heard great things about everybody on the board, and I knew Peter was really good, so I kind of wanted to keep an eye out for him especially. And I really kind of came in hoping to get Italy and to work with Liam in Austria. And I was kind of worried a little bit about Zach too. I think Zach and Peter were the 2 that I was really kind of concerned about. And so landing into Germany really was just I haven't even thought about taking Germany.
So John, yeah, you deliberately chose to go in 6th place in the selection order. That was a dramatic drop. Most people who drop themselves down from the 1st or 2nd position only go so far as, say, 3, 4, sometimes 5. What made you go all the way down to 6th?
Well, I just figured, let the people who have the preconceived notions, or the people who they want to be next to, let them funnel in at the top. I'll try to, come in here at the end and then, try to work something out in the middle. And it ended up working out pretty well for me. So, I mean, it was a pleasant surprise. I thought as Germany, when I saw, Peter and in Germany and Hunter in England, I thought, oh, for sure, I'm just going to get wiped off the map. But it was a pleasant surprise. So I really had no foresight or planning at all about playing Germany. So that was not part of the plan.
Yeah,
So.
well, I'm not going to lie that us on the commentary side, like we saw this draw and we're like, oh, that EF, that's something to be really worried about. And we were proven wrong very quickly, obviously. But
yeah, speaking of the beginning of the game, tell us what happened. You have Peter McNamara in France, you had Hunter Catcher in England, Jake Trotta in Italy, and you were in Germany. And the three of you, Hunter, Jake, and you, all immediately went after Peter. Like, how did that go down?
Well, it really, like you said, kind of fell into my lap a little bit. I was kind of, trying to decide exactly which side to take, but it really kind of fell into my lap. I suggested the idea. I'm trying to remember, I think to Jake or Hunter, one or the other. And then they're like, yeah, if you get the other one on board, then for sure we'll do it. And so we just kind of had a little three-way do-si-do, and we all kind of figured it out. But it's kind of funny. In the meantime, I had something going on with Peter and George. George was opening up north, and we thought the three of us could get the jump on Hunter as well. So we kind of had these two dueling plans going on, and it worked out to my benefit. But I was actually trying to convince Peter to open up the English Channel, and he was like, "Oh no, I feel safe. I don't need to do it." And Hunter's like, "Yeah, for sure, I'm going English Channel." And so I decided, hey, if that's the way the dice are going to roll, I'll run in on Peter with these guys, and then I'll have George up here in the north sowing some chaos with Hunter, so that when I work with Hunter, I'm the one who comes out on top, and he's not in a better position to get the jump on me. So it ended up working out well.
How did you say a little bit about how you got? So that's how you got the agreement. How did you get the jump on Peter, though? How did you get Peter to not suspect that that English Channel, Burgundy, or Piedmont would be? How did you convince him to not cover any of them?
Well, I think if you look at those moves, those are probably the moves that I would have done. I really like to go out and take care of Iberia and really trust England's going to stay out of the English Channel. And so I think he really sincerely wanted to work with me. And, and we had an agreement to stay out of Burgundy. So it was kind of a thing that I didn't think was going to happen. I think this was all planned, with, literally the last second. I think, Jake shot a little text saying, hey, are we going through with this? It's like, yeah, Hunter's going to English Channel. Like, we're going through with it. And it was kind of it seemed like it kind of materialized, last minute. And that seems to be how I play. Like, I always get my orders in last minute. And every tournament I've been in, I've had NMRs except this one. So that's something I really need to improve on. But boy, you just get caught up in talking with everybody in the negotiations that, a lot of times I leave those things to the very end.
So John, what do you think was the pivotal moment here for you, or in general, what do you think it was that you did well this game that enabled you to win the championship? Then we'll talk about pivotal moments.
Well, I think something that I like to do is, try to be an amicable person, somebody hopefully easy to work with. I don't like to step on a lot of toes, but if an advantage or an opportunity opens up, I'm not going to let that door close. So I think for a lot of these players, they were just really good players, and actually to my benefit, Jake and Liam, the entire game, I was trying to get them to work together to get this kind of central alliance going. And to my dismay, it seemed like every other season, those two would just, go after each other. But it ended up working in my benefit. And, George, boy, he was great to work with. And I just felt like I try to keep those relationships going. And it ended up working out for me. I don't think anyone really targeted me or even talked about coming after me. Zach was kind of like my biggest. He was kind of like the little devil on my shoulder, really. I shouldn't say that, but he was the guy I was really kind of worried about, because he was the one trying to mobilize the board. And so trying to keep him contained was a priority. And I'm glad I did, because I think if he, spilled over too much out of the box, then he would have ran away with this game. So it ended up working out to my benefit.
You're being very modest in taking, in trying to avoid taking credit for keeping Zach in the box. It wasn't it wasn't like other people just sort of kind of did it. It seems like you were really working hard in diplomatic channels to arrange that. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, I mean, it's all relative. I guess, we really need to get all 7 of us on the board, and kind of get the full rundown of how it went. Maybe they have different opinions of how the negotiations went. But it's funny with Zach, I didn't even really talk to him, I think, till like 1907 or something. I mean, we didn't really talk at all game. I just was too busy, trying to pull Liam and Jake into a room, negotiate with them, work things out with Hunter, touch base with George. And then Peter was great. Every single round, Peter would get me into a room and he would give me just a brilliant pitch on turning against Hunter. And I had to politely keep turning those down, but still, keep acting like I was leaving the door open. And, he was just brilliant in that way. And, there were a few times he almost convinced me. But I don't know. I mean, talk to these other guys and see what their opinion of what it is, but I just think, I talk to everybody. I figure I like to, I'm not like a dot grabber. I don't feel like I'm that kind of a player. And I don't like to eliminate players either. So, if we can keep George on the board, if we can keep Liam on the board, that's motivation for them to stick around and hopefully help me advance my interest.
So the other key, apart from managing your relationship with Liam in a way that kept Zach in the box, which is what you've talked about, was how your relationship with Hunter evolved after the conflict began. And by the end, Hunter was actively working for you. How did you manage that?
Well, I think it's totally.
No.
At no point I really asked Hunter to, to pirate for me and send those. I mean, we had these discussions back and forth, but I think the whole time he always kind of kept me at arm's length and had some suspicion with me. But there was a point where he said, hey, you deserve the board top, just, write my orders for me. But I still talked to him and asked him what, he thought were good moves to do. I just think there was something between him and Jake that, keeping those two bundled up together, that he maybe felt like that was kind of a bigger issue than diving towards me. And I think George as well, George helping me out, building that fleet in STP North Coast. I mean, that's pretty demoralizing, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that had a part of it. But no, Hunter was he was on the ball the whole game, and I don't think there was any point where I was, forcing him to do something he didn't want to do. So
you are. I mean, we're getting a sense of how you managed to ride the board top pretty much from the get-go through the end of the game, which is unusual for a top board situation. Usually, the leader gets targeted, especially someone who takes the lead as early as you did. But hearing how smoothly you deflect credit and responsibility is, I think, giving us a bit of insight into how you manage that. Do Doug and Siobhan, would you guys like to ask John anything?
I mean, I don't know that I have any questions per se, but exactly what you're saying there, Brandon. You were just so diplomatic and calming, and it goes straight in line every year after year. We're just looking at this board, and why is there no one in the middle of the board dealing with this? Why can't they get their act together? Why are they just chaos muppeting around what is now a board top? And having talked to you now, I can see it. It makes sense.
Well, I think you're giving me a little too much credit. Like I mean, that spaghetti bowl down south was fun to watch, but it was also very frustrating, and almost gave me a few heart attacks and a couple of mini strokes along the way.
No game of diplomacy.
But I got to hand it to you. I think you picked me to win this game.
I
so
did.
Really, that means you're the winner.
Me and my crystal ball.
I don't think that's the case. I think you're the winner.
Yeah.
I've been playing this game for a long time, and I spent time doing well on boards and not taking the credit I deserved. You deserved every moment of this, John.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. That means a lot to hear that. And I know now I have a huge target on my back that I'm not looking forward to. I kind of like to come in from the inside and not be very well known and, get to know players on the board and work that way. But I think a lot of this kind of really fell into my lap, I think there's a lot bigger picture here, and I think it'd be nice to get everyone in a room together and really discuss and hash out these things and see, what people decide to do when and where. But
John?
I mean, look at this. How did not have anybody in Bohemia, Silesia coming up into Gal? Like
That's what I'm
for
talking
the
about.
longest
Like,
time, my home centers were open, and it was
mind-boggling at the
great
end of
for
the game
Germany.
when you were on 11 or 12, and like Bohemia, Silesia, Prussia, Livonia, Galicia, Burgundy, I think even near the end of the game.
At the very end, you're talking
A
about
little further. Yeah, like it just was mind-boggling. Okay, so
Yeah.
not Burgundy, but like
Well, I think there was a couple moments that I had to really kind of raise my voice a little bit and be a little more
Gently
forward than I like to do. And that was me and Hunter. He wanted to move. He built a Fleet London when I wanted him to build an Eddy.
I remember Fleet
This
London,
is
yes.
a few years back. Yeah. And he was wanting to move that fleet into the North Sea and take Norway. And I was like, no, I want you to go to England or English Channel. Like, we need to get those fleets around the Western Med, don't you think? And, we have enough units in the North to take, Norway and SDP. Let's not waste the move doing
enough
that.
of my units. In
And
other words.
boy, he gave me pushback. And I could tell you this was something he did not want to do. And I mean, I had to keep that pressure on him without going too over the top where he, maybe would get sketched out about me. But I mean, that worked out to my benefit. And then there was a time where I think Liam at the end of the game, Zach did an incredible job, Zach Moore, of getting him to move out of all of his home centers.
Oh,
and
yes.
up into, I think, Gal, Ukraine, and Bohemia.
While Zach took Romania from behind.
We're talking
Right.
about at the very end.
Yeah. And so I had to get him into a room and just sit on him the whole time and not let any, just talk to him.
Oh,
and
just monopolize his time.
there were a few times he was like, hey, I think I'm going to go up to the chat, and I'm like, oh, hey, I think we got a few things to discuss. And I made sure I was with him till the very end so Zach couldn't get in there.
See,
and I just told him, I said, Liam, like, let's build this wall here in Vienna, Bud, and Rum. And I'll come behind you. I'll support you. We'll keep Zach in the box, and that will force him onto Jake, right? And him and Jake had some contention.
This is exactly what I'm saying, though, and I think all three of us are. Is like the credit here is all on you.
Well, he did a great job because if you think about it, I told him, I said, where is Zach going to get his dots to top me? It's through your home centers, right? And I said, it's in my interest to see you survive and to prop you up, and I can get all my dots in the North and West. And so I think that kind of had an effect on him. Plus, I mean, we've been working, I don't know, but we've been communicating throughout the entire game. And so, getting him to turn and to do that, I think really sealed it for me. And because Zach, I mean, he was phenomenal what he was doing to get him to turn around like that. I mean, it was a lot of work to get Liam to turn around. But I mean, it was Liam's decision to do it. Ultimately, I hope. I hope he doesn't feel like I was strong arming him into it. But he was a lot of fun to play with, and he's always a joy. So,
I mean, this is what we were talking about your incredible diplomatic performance in this. Is you were able to make that pitch and get somebody effectively. What you did is you persuaded Liam that, you're the player that should win. Whether you put it in those terms or not, that's what you did. And, on a top board, you've got to bring everything that you have. And, I thought this was just an amazing diplomatic performance right here on this turn. That's awesome.
I mean, I think those were really the two moments that I had to get a little heated, I feel like. And I don't normally like to play that way. I like to be pretty laid back, but it was tough. It was a tough board. I told him afterwards, I said, I've been in some of these tournaments. My first tournament was just DixieCon of this year, and I was Turkey, and I was with a bunch of killers on that board, and they just hounded me. They twisted my arm. I really got beat up, and I was like, oh man, is this like what all these really good players are like? It was rough. And so to be on this board with all these really good players and to have everybody be friendly, nobody really shut anyone out. Everyone talked freely with everyone else. It was just a great dynamic of players on the board, and everybody got along. I didn't see tempers really flying and anyone yelling directly at anybody. So that was good to see.
Well, John, you say that you like to play as a relative unknown that gets to know people on the board and people get to know you on the board. You're going to have to find a new way to play.
Bingo.
Yeah, I'm not.
John, you put on a tour de force game here. Excellent diplomatic, strategic, tactical sense. When did you start playing? I mean, tell us about your development as a player. And
Yeah, so I got introduced to diplomacy, funny enough, at a family reunion.
Nothing
my
brings a
cousins and
family
family
together
and
like
uncle-
diplomacy.
Well, it's funny because we're really into kind of like strategic games. Like me and my brothers would play like 4-player chess. I played Stratego when I was young. My cousins were into like Axis and Allies and Risk. And so they brought diplomacy. I was like a teenager. I was maybe 13, 14. And they brought diplomacy we do a camp out for once a year at our family reunion. They brought diplomacy. And man, I just instantly fell in love with it. The fact that you write down all your orders, everyone goes at the same time. There's no BS dice involved. And it's just,
Yes.
it was just such a pure way of playing a game. And I just immediately fell in love with it. And every year we would play once a year. And it's funny, when you play with the same people every year, you really develop, tendencies and how people play. Then you kind of end up working with the same people all the time.
Mhm.
So it's fun in this setting to have just a variety of new people to meet and to experience the game with. And so after that, I mean, we kind of all end up moving all over the country. And so there was a website called gamesbyemail.com. And we got on that and we would play through that service. And then I got onto the Conspiracy app and I play a lot on that, Gunboat and Negotiation. But when I found this, I mean, I was thrilled. This is such a fun opportunity to, I don't have to travel somewhere. I tried to convince my wife to let me come to Chicago a couple years ago. But when I tried to explain, hey, I'm going to go play with a bunch of, random people I don't know, board games for the weekend, she would kind of put the kibosh on that. So, I mean, having this opportunity just to be in my own home, to be able to communicate with people, to have that kind of pseudo face-to-face experience, it's phenomenal. This has been a real blessing, especially during COVID, to have this opportunity. So I appreciate all the hard work you guys do. I mean, putting this all together. So
yeah, thank you. Where are you based out of, John? I don't think I remember.
Oh, I'm in Linden, Utah. And so
Okay.
we don't have any kind of, I think the closest, I think somebody said Montana, there was one.
There's a Montana tournament that happens every other year, and the Bay Area, California is not that far from you. And I run a tournament every year. Well, in better times than this, but.
Well, I have family out in San Francisco, so I have been out that way, but that still is kind of a trek to get out there. So
just saying, there's a tournament happens about 40 minutes south of San Francisco every year. Plug for everyone watching the stream.
Well, I'll definitely look into it. But I mean, this is kind of, especially with the VDL games too, like every month.
Oh yeah.
Like this is really the way to go for me personally, because you get that kind of face-to-face experience a little bit, but then you have the convenience of, sitting in your underwear, at home. So
TMI.
Yeah. But now we understand why the camera is pointed out so much.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the only one.
No, I was going to say, you've got Doug Moore, who is the just hobby-wide agreed-upon Germany expert in diplomacy.
Yeah. I watched this thing. I watched this thing with the Chris Martin videos. I think it was the 2016 World Championship. Yep. So.
Yeah, no, and when you get Doug complimenting your play in Germany, you've made it to the big leagues. And so I will just say, because I believe this gets you an invite, I look forward to playing with you at the Invitational, John.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And getting compliments from Doug, man, always gives you a big head. So
exactly.
Hopefully I don't develop an ego.
John, you have just qualified for the Invitational, the DBN Invitational, which will take place in February. So put that on your calendar. We're looking at, I believe, the 13th, 20th, and 27th. So it's going to be similar to this, a 2-weekend event where you have 2 qualifying rounds, one each weekend, and then the top board the final week. So put that on your calendar, man. Yeah,
I'll definitely put it down. I look forward to being totally destroyed for 2 rounds. So
I may not have played a game of diplomacy in over a year by the time this rolls around. Yeah. So
you keep playing like you did today, and you'll be just fine.
No problem at all.
I appreciate that.
John, congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for playing. And we definitely look forward to seeing both how you do on your future boards and also how this impacts your play going forward.
Thank you. And man, I just want to give a shout out to you guys. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. I've scoured the internet for diplomacy content, and there's like the Nathan Barnes podcast and a couple other videos out there. But since this came up, man, it just has given a lot of content on the web. And I mean, you guys aren't getting paid to do this. You do it on your own free time. And it means a lot to me. And I know a lot of other players out there really appreciate it. So, a big shout out to you guys. Thank you for everything you're doing for us.
Thanks for that, John. All right, we're going to say goodnight to you, and I'm going to be doing a wrap-up show sometime later this week. Maybe I'll try to get a bunch of you guys on there, but we'll definitely try. We always try to get the champion on there, but since this was a top board and sort of special event, maybe we'll get the whole crew together like you were asking for.
I think it'd be fun. You get a more complete picture, You don't just have to listen to my BS. You maybe get the whole truth.
I do know. So Zach arranged to have a bunch of your negotiations recorded. So Tommy was popping in and out of rooms recording the previous tournament champion from Liberty Cup. So he was popping around recording a bunch of stuff. So we'll see what he got. And Zach, who is our principal editor, this is actually as juicy as we hoped it would be. He'll get to hear it all, and he'll also be the one putting together a highlight reel. So we'll have some oversight on that.
Well, I'm feeling great. You're making me a little nervous now. So if I wasn't in the basement already, you guys are really nailing, the coffin shut here for my future games.
If we actually succeeded in making you nervous, I think that would count as the single greatest accomplishment that DBN made this weekend, because you seem mightily imperturbable.
Well, I don't know. It's late. I'm tired. I was tired last in the second round. I got huge bags under my eyes, so maybe that has something to do with it.
I can't even get a rise out of him by telling him how hard it is to get a rise out of him.
Well, maybe it's this monotone Ray Romano voice I have. People have the familiarity with it, so it kind of comforts them. I'm just like a TV sitcom in your home. It's very inviting.
See,
maybe that can be the new thing, Brandon, so we can get off the whole presidential independent thing.
My goodness.
I like now you're both. I mean, John Anderson, former presidential candidate, and Ray Romano,
and star of Everyone's
I'll just give you one more thing to humble me with every time. So
please do. All right. All right, John, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, pleasure all around, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And that was John Anderson, the tournament champion. Next, we will hear from Calvin Coulbury, who Siobhan sat down with shortly after the tournament. Here it is.
All righty. Hey, Calvin, thank you so much for taking some time.
Thank you for having me on.
All righty. So let's get it started nice and easy. Tell our viewers a little bit about you. How did you get into diplomacy?
Well, when I was younger, like in middle school, I was at a thrift store and I saw a board game that had a really cool box, and I bought it. And so that was diplomacy. I have a few friends that I used to play board games with, still do, but we all went off to different colleges and stuff. And so we brought out the box. There were only 5 of us, and we tried to understand the rules and didn't really get it for a while. But I still had the box, and then we picked it up again in high school when we actually kind of understood the rules, got a few other friends, and started playing then. And then I kind of stopped playing for a little while, and then I started playing online again pretty recently.
Awesome. Yeah. So you found our face-to-face hobby virtually this year since everyone went online. How did you find us?
So I started, me and my friends wanted to keep playing diplomacy, even though we were, scattered across the country. So we found a couple of online sites to play web diplomacy and v-diplomacy. And then from there, I started seeing notices and stuff about virtual face-to-face. And so I joined up.
Awesome. So what was your first tournament with us?
Liberty Cup. Liberty Cup was my first tournament this summer.
All right. How was that first experience?
I did not play well at all. I mean, it was fun. It was super fun. I got eliminated both rounds. So that was pretty good, but it was a great time. Love live diplomacy. It's really fun.
And going virtual has been such an adjustment for all players all around. So it must have been interesting for you to get thrown into it, having not even met any of these face-to-face players.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. I see you're pretty active in the community now. You're chatting with people. How you liking it?
I'm really loving it. Outside of diplomacy, I play ultimate frisbee, and so I've got that community going on too. But I'm really liking how kind of willing to engage with people this community is, and kind of talk about stuff. I mean, it's similar to ultimate frisbee. It's a pretty white community, pretty male dominated community. So I just want to say unequivocally, Black Lives Matter. I support kind of total abolition as a way forward. And if anybody wants to chat with me about that, you can hit me up on Discord, Calvin #8121. So looking forward to have conversations. Everybody wants to talk.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So yeah, you're clearly into activism and a bunch of stuff. So tell us a little bit more about you. What do you do?
So I'm a student right now. I'm studying physics and atmospheric science with a focus on meteorology. Other than that, I do play Frisbee. Obviously, no Ultimate Frisbee going on right now. It's a team sport and stuff. So pandemic isn't really letting that happen. But this summer, I've been reading up a lot on, decolonial thought, systemic racism in America, stuff like that. Really trying to educate myself, especially with all the protests and kind of uprisings going on over police killings. So trying to kind of learn more about that. I mean, I've had ideas about it, but I've grown up pretty sheltered, especially down here in the South. So it's definitely been good to kind of learn more about it.
Fantastic. I may hit you up for some book recommendations soon.
For sure.
All right. So we know a little bit more about you. So tell me, what do you think about you and your personality makes you good at the game of diplomacy? Because we've seen you play a few times now, and it's clear that you have a great deal of skill.
Thanks. Well, I am definitely a coalition player. I like building really strong alliances and kind of seeing those through. I'd say that's definitely one of my strengths, is kind of fostering trust and kind of open communication in a game where those are really difficult to foster. I feel like that's probably the strongest thing that I bring to the table, is that kind of interpersonal communication.
Okay, so you would say that you're a good alliance player. Some of us in the face-to-face hobby would call that a Care Bear play, which us West Coasters are known for being. But speaking of alliance play, and you know that I had to talk about this, let's talk about that 1717 alliance.
Let's do it. Let's jump right in.
So for those of you who aren't aware, Calvin and Zach Moore ran a game-long alliance and wound up ending on 1717. And we, as the broadcasters, had a lot to say about it on stream. You can go and find that. It's all on YouTube. But Calvin, tell me from your perspective.
So it was a 1717, also not along a stalemate line, so there was a lot of trust going on there. We had we had allied near the beginning, Austria and Italy. I was Austria. It's always good to find a friendly face in Italy, especially when there was kind of a delayed juggernaut going on. It was questioning whether it was actually happening, and then it definitely was happening, and I was on the receiving end of that. And Zach was really there for me, like unequivocally at the beginning of the game. Like there was a point when Turkey had a unit in Budapest, and I was like, oh, this is the wash. It's all over at this point. But that turn worked out, and then me and Zach were able to kind of hold off the juggernaut for long enough that Russia decided to switch sides. Poor John Jameson in Turkey. I feel bad about that, but it's kind of what had to happen. And then the game progressed to kind of a pseudo stalemate line, with France and England having eliminated Germany. No, was it France and England having? No, it was Germany. Oh God, I'm forgetting.
I know.
It was. I believe it was Germany and no, it was France. Yeah, it was France and England having eliminated Germany. Yes, because it was. Germany was down to like 1 or 2 centers by the end of the game, and then we. Yeah. And then the East had kind of united along there, and there was a lot of talk of like, well, I guess we just kind of have to draw here. But it was going to be a very dissatisfying ending with I think it was a 3-way tie for first at like 8 centers or something.
Oof.
And it was going to be bad. But then we convinced, or Zach convinced England to stab, and then he broke through on that end, and I was like, well, I guess it's time to stab Russia on my end, and off to the races. And then a few turns into that, I was already thinking, you know what? We should maybe go for a 1717. I think that'd be pretty sweet. And then Zach kind of proposed it, and I was totally on board, with the idea being that it was going to be a very kind of poetic ending. Like the narrative was beautiful. It was alliance from the beginning. Everyone's eyes on us. We kind of had to just follow through with it. And especially, a 1717 is the sort of thing that is talked about sometimes, and you hear people propose it, but no one ever actually really follows through with it. So it was the idea of really doing that, and especially with tribute scoring, kind of punishing alliance play, and kind of de-incentivizing this idea of a 1717. I thought it was going to be really nice to kind of fly in the face of tradition there, and pull it off.
Okay, so from your perspective, it was a love story for the ages.
Yep.
From the commenter's perspective, it was a tragedy in several acts.
Exactly.
Do you have regrets looking back now with how close you were to making the top board?
No, honestly, I have no regrets. You know, the amount of work that went into that 17-17, you know, I said it in game near the end, and I'll say it again here. I would have rather been eliminated early than not follow through with the 17-17. Like that was the ending that I wanted. And I'm happy that Zach made it to the final board. And I, you know, obviously a little sad I didn't, but I'm sure I'll play a few more tournaments than this. So I'm looking forward to those.
Okay. Yeah. It's, you know, it's so rare that we see people get so close to a solo and not take it. So I think from our perspective, like, but dotting Zach for you would have been
it just would have been antithetical to how I had played the game up until that point.
Okay. And, you know, if you had a great game, you had a great game. And it was a fantastic game that you two played. So
exactly. It was very fun. I had a great time.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about you and diplomacy. What's your favorite country and why?
Well, you know, I used to always love to play France, but the more and more I've played, I've started gravitating towards the East. You know, Austria is a tough draw, but if you can make it work, you can make it work. I do love Turkey, kind of playing in the corner, seeing what's going on with Russia, maybe cooperating, maybe not. I love the dynamic of the East, because the West, I feel, is pretty, you know, clear cut. You have, you know, like the three powers, who's going to go where, what's going to happen. With the East, with the introduction of kind of Italy being kind of a middle power in between the East and the West, and Russia having the northern, you know, front as well, I feel like the dynamics open up a lot more angles for negotiation and for, you know, really intricate, dynamic social plays.
Fantastic answer. As an advocate for Austria myself, because it seems to be the most unpopular, I'm right there with you.
Exactly. It's always, you know, whenever you see Austria come up next to your name in the draw, there's a simultaneous like, oh no, and also like, actually, you know what, this could be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it on the top board this past weekend that Austria was the one that was doled out last in the Paris method. So
yeah.
All right. So do you have any plans to attend any upcoming tournaments?
Yeah. I mean, I keep hearing the pitches for the ones coming up. I'm definitely going to be there for whichever ones I can make. That, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'll be free for both of them, but you know, can't promise anything. But yeah, I'm definitely going to play virtual face-to-face again. And once everything opens up, definitely face-to-face. I was actually planning on going to Carnage in Vermont, because, you know, being at McGill, it's not that far of a drive down. So I was definitely looking to do that before the pandemic happened.
Wait, so you're saying that you were going to go to World DipCon as your first face-to-face diplomacy tournament?
Well, you know, when you say it like that,
no,
I was going to try.
you would have met everyone.
Yes.
But no, that would have been fantastic. In another year, it'll definitely happen again.
Yeah.
And you know, there are diplomacy players all over, and I'm sure you can sync up, find local clubs, maybe start one of your own.
I would love that.
Yeah. All right. So before we let you go, is there anything else you want to say to everyone who's watching?
I don't know. Just keep thinking about your local friendly alliance player, and don't go too hard on them.
All righty, Calvin. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. It was great to get to talk to you. And to everyone else out there, wear your masks, stay safe, and stab well.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that was Calvin Coulbury. Siobhan, that was a nice interview with him. Did that leave you with any parting thoughts?
I mean, I'm so often struck by players' motivations when they play this game, because they're so different from what I would have done. I remember watching this game and being so shocked at both Calvin and Zach, and neither of them taking the opportunity to go for the solo, because opportunities for solo are so few and far between. And for Zach, you can't argue the results. I talked to Zach before the top board, and for him, he got to the top board. That was all he wanted. But for Calvin, who came so close, for me, I would have had so much regret. But for him, there was none. And the bigger sin, it seems like, for him would have been to have stabbed Zach. So understanding... Oh, go ahead.
Can I make one comment here? I GM'd the game, and I eavesdropped on some of their conversations, and they thought their best shot at both of them making the top board was a 17-17 split. When you crunch the numbers, only one of them was going to make it. Calvin needed the solo to make it, and Zach, if he gets 0 when Calvin solos, does not make it. So this is Zach made it with room to spare. Calvin missed it by like 6 points.
Yep.
But they were pretty sure that Calvin was going to make it. I thought they were unreasonably certain, but I think you're right. I don't think Calvin would have stabbed even if he'd known he wouldn't make it.
Well, and that's the thing is you play this game long enough and with enough people, understanding other players' motivations and what is most important to them, because both talking to Calvin during the interview and a little bit before and after, for him, he would have had more regret if he had stabbed for the solo, I believe, than the not making the top board regret.
And that will keep me up at night.
You and me both.
I give him credit for sticking to his guns, defending that position. I part of me does kind of wonder though, if given it, like, wouldn't he really rather have made the top board? I mean,
it was right there.
I'm just projecting. I don't think he needed a solo. I think he just needed to go for a big board top, 14 or 15 centers should have gotten him up over the 55 mark.
But it wasn't possible for both of them to advance. That's like, they maximized their points out of this game. I crunched all the numbers. There was no way both of them could make it.
Really? Oh, I thought if Zach got about 40 and I guess they would need. It's the thing, right? Because there would be another survivor. They would need a third person. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and you're like me, Christian, where you crunch the numbers and you're constantly doing this math. Whether I'm playing or GMing, I'm looking at how people are playing and the opportunities I feel like they're missing sometimes. But, I'm not in these games. I'm not in these negotiations. And so as a commentator, it's easy for me to be like, you should have done it.
There's several times I've listened to a conversation where I know they're calculating it wrong, or they haven't noticed that somebody just soloed on another board, and you just got to bite your tongue because
I wonder, it'd be interesting to know. I doubt we could get Zach to admit this without truth serum, but it'd be interesting to hear how conscious he was that that discussion was benefiting him, that he was the one who was going to make it, not Calvin.
They seemed pretty clear. Like, I think I am paraphrasing here. I think I heard Zach say to Calvin, I know I'll make it if we do this, and I think you will, but I'm not sure. Something along those lines.
Okay. Plausible deniability.
I mean, that's the truth. I know I'll make it. I think you will. Like, did Zach know for sure he wouldn't? Yeah, possibly. Although,
but yeah, I think you're right, Brandon. Without truth serum, we're never going to get Zach to admit it.
We didn't know for sure either. We weren't, like, the cutoff was 56.8. He made 50 with a 0 out of round 1. We weren't positive that 50 wouldn't do it.
Was that the last game that was finishing? Or was there another one? Can't remember.
I don't
remember. In any case, maybe Zach will admit it someday, maybe not. Time will tell. But that's going to do it for our wrap-up show. We do have some coming attractions, and here they are. Coming up just this Friday, we're going to drop the next episode of Deadline News. That's with David Hood, and there we cover player reputation and how that's important for play, and also how that presents new challenges in this era where we've got online players who are used to anonymity mixing with face-to-face players, and what sort of what difficulties that presents for them breaking in or for establishing a reputation. We also have the Virtual Diplomacy League. We'll have coverage of that on DBN, Game Day Live coverage coming on September 26th. In October, we have the next virtual face-to-face tournament, which is Tempest and Teapot. That is normally played in DC, but played online this year. That will be on October 17th. We also have the Virtual Diplomacy League October games, which I did find out, I believe, is the 24th. I'm not sure. I guess I did not press the keys necessary. That'll do it for our upcoming events. That'll do it for tonight's wrap-up show. Please subscribe to us on YouTube if you've not already. You can check out our VDL standings and the DBN invitational standings at diplobn.com. Siobhan and Christian, thank you guys both very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe out there. And Siobhan, do you have anything you'd like to sign off with?
I'd like to just say stay safe and stab well.
All right. Thanks. Have a great night, everyone.